Welcome to a new episode of Cosmovision. Today I am having a conversation with the pro-life leader, president and founder of Prolife Global, Bethany Janzen. We will talk about why we have the mindset about abortion and life, what education has done to our youth, what does it mean to be a hero today? Are we similar to our ancestors in the past? What does it take to encourage our leaders and our youth to speak free, to, to get rid of fear and shame about defending life from conception? She has been in 36 countries and she has been in Latin America. She's a public speaker, and it is a pleasure to be with her today. It's profitable for you. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm leaving the link to Prolife Global and Bethany's social media if you want to connect with her. Um, Welcome and enjoy. I'm here with Bethany Janzen. Bethany, thank you for joining me today. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks for having me on, Anderson. I'm really excited to get to connect today. I know it's been a while since I got to hang out with you last in Colombia, but excited that get to connect again and see everything
Yeah,
that's been going on.
yeah. I think it was like a year ago, maybe more. I don't remember. Maybe a year ago. I think that you were in Medellin and you were with Melanie, and you
Yeah.
guys deliver a conference for youth, for students, and it was about creating the pro-life clubs within high schools. And I remember that we were there in that conference. I helped you translate, which was fun. So tell me about that. What was your impression when you came to Medellin, about the people, the feeling, and what did you see in the pro-abortion movement? And of course, uh, I don't want to jump in, but you can tell us later how you became a pro-life advocate leader, and a bit about yourself.
Yeah, totally. So I was really excited to get to come to Colombia. It was my second time coming when I came to Medellin. We got to connect. And it was really awesome to get to meet with young people. And, Anderson, you and your team that organized the event invited all the young people from the different churches across the city, right? And we had about 50 young people who are mostly, honestly, junior high and a few high school and some high school kids. I would say probably mixed, junior high and high school, a couple of university, but really it was mainly junior high and high school. And one thing that I thought was really interesting was that some of these students didn't have very good formation on the issue. I mean, I guess it's not that surprising, but when we asked the question, when we first of all started off with the value everybody has, knowing God and how they're loved by God, made by God. And I think people were most in alignment with that, but there was definitely some pushback when it came to the fact that every single person is made by God and has that value, even starting at conception, right? Because things like even hormonal birth control, we know, potentially could cause an abortion. And so, and the morning after pill definitely could cause an abortion. And those were conversations that people brought up, and they were asking them, they were like, oh, wait, that's not good. And so then we got to the next point, which we actually explained what an abortion is. And I remember when we watched that video of the faces of the victims of abortion, people were literally crying. Like I could hear their tears in the room when they saw that. And it affected them very deeply because they realized this is wrong, that we can't be ending the life. And then we asked the question, is abortion forgivable? And I remember one girl, she stood up and she said, absolutely not. And that's when we got to bring up the gospel, which is that even though abortion is so horrific and it's so wrong, and we should never do this, Jesus came to give his life for us, even in those depths of our our brokenness. And
It's
we've
not
done.
the unpardonable sin. And so it seems that there is a lack of knowledge and education in these junior high and high people, that they assume what they are taught in school or wherever. Um,
Mhm.
that's the only that's the only view they can get about not only human value but abortion as well, and the different methods and consequences. Yeah.
Well,
Would
and
you
that
agree?
was part of the challenge next, because after that, we said, okay, why don't you guys get together in groups, right? Let's everyone who says, I want to be a hero, I want to be a lifesaver, and I want to save lives on my school and at my university, come over here. And we had about three-quarters of the young people that said, hey, I do want to, at least two-thirds, okay? So we sat down together with them and we said, okay, this is what it could look like to start a pro-life team in your school. And one thing I remember very distinctly was the young people being afraid. And they said, I'm the only pro-life kid in my school that I know of. How can I do this?
Yeah.
And I think in the West, we oftentimes think of Latin America as very Catholic, very pro-life, because we always get these
Yeah.
messaging of massive people, a million people came to the March for Life in Argentina,
Mm-hmm.
and
Hmm.
all this amazing. So we think, oh, they're pro-life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the reality is you have high school and junior high kids
Yeah.
who say, I'm the only one that's pro-life in my school.
Yeah. So Bethany, I think in the one hand they feel like a minority after
Oh,
being
yes, absolutely
flooded by the
minority.
first time with this information, not only from science, because I was there, but also from the Bible. And
Yeah,
that's one of the misconceptions that I think some people in North America feel. That I remember even one day, Richard Dawkins came to Colombia to debate a priest, and he said, well, Colombia is a Christian country. Well, it's not. The fact that we have Catholic Church uh, everywhere, and that's the legacy of Spain, that we have the parks and the church in the center, that
yeah,
doesn't mean people is really devoted, not even to Catholicism. I would say, like, in Latin America, we may be living in a post-Christian or post-Catholic era. And in North America and Europe, you can say it is a post-Christian era, but it's not
yeah,
exactly the same thing.
yeah. That's true. It's not quite the same. It's more of like a post-Catholic era in
Yeah.
Latin America. And it's interesting because I lived in Europe for several years, and it's very post-Christian, post-Catholic there. But honestly, in some ways, like in Austria where I lived, it was very similar. It was very similar. Like there's
Yeah.
14, they did a study that said 14% of the young people in Austria were against abortion in all or most cases. And
Hmm.
honestly, in Latin America,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anderson, I don't know
Yeah.
if you think it'd be any better.
Yeah. No, I think that the pressure of the West, it, has reached has become so strong in Latin America that it becomes, the mindset becomes very normal, very similar, like very global. Like that's the
Yeah,
profile of the common person today, the youth. They are absorbing exactly the same. We have a saying here
yeah.
that when it rains in America, it doesn't stop in South America. So I think that, about that, one thing is education, but the other thing is that they typically, the youth, haven't been exposed to the Christian worldview about life and abortion, so they assume certain things. I remember one day I was in high school as well, and one of the ladies said, "Well, if the mother has been raped, or if the baby will be poor and suffer, I think it is okay we kill it." And I thought, wow, if thankfully you're not deciding for the rest of the society. So how can we, from your experience in Prolife Global, and you can share a bit how you do it, what is your goal at Prolife Global, how can we encourage a Christian worldview of life, a worldview of life in our youth?
So great question, first of all. And the very simple answer that I want to give is we need to empower our young people. We need not just talk at them, but we need to then actually empower them themselves to be the change
Mhm.
makers and the change agents. And one thing that we've been really studying as a team and thinking about is the fact that across the board in countries where it is legal to be a Christian,
Yeah.
we find that there's 2/3 of young people who are leaving the church when they get to end of high school or early 20s.
Yeah.
This is the same in the United States. This is the same in Latin
Everyone.
America. And this is the same that our African leaders are telling us as well. So when we think of this question of why are young people leaving, that's, people saying hypocrisy, or they say, they just stopped going, or they say they have a relationship with God. Well, when we dig down the opposite of it and we frame it the other way of how do we help our young people to stay in the church, there's 3 essential things that are important. First of all is a relationship with Jesus, personal, one-on-one relationship where you know God and he knows you. The second one is a discipleship community. You need to have people pouring into you. You need to have people you're pouring out to, and really authentic friendship. But the third one that is, because we have communities where people are finding a relationship with Jesus and they are being discipled. But the last one that the church has oftentimes not done very well with, and is a huge opportunity for us, is that they need a battle to fight for, that lives, physical lives on this earth that we can see, depend upon.
Yeah.
That's why the persecuted church, like I spoke with some of our partners in Southeast Asia, and they said they don't see the same fallout rate, because there you can go to jail if you try to convert someone.
Yeah.
And
So,
and that's what we can empower our young people to actually come together to say, hey, let's help you to know Jesus, to listen to him, to pray, to be in a relationship with other people who also are, to strive for purity together, because you're in authentic friendship. You're walking in the light and not in the darkness. And now that you are in the light, let's go bring that light to the rest of the world. Bring that light to your classmates. Invite them into this community with us. Bring that light then to our university campuses, because this is the light of Christ. And for some reason, the church has, and sometimes the pro-life movement, I must say, has been guilty of telling our young people, all right, don't sleep together before you get married. Don't have an abortion. Don't use birth control, and don't watch pornography.
Don't.
And so our young people are just hearing what not to do. And that doesn't empower them. Like, when we have something to fight, when we don't have something to fight for, we're just fighting against stuff. If we can get very easily discouraged because we feel like, oops, I've messed up, I made a mistake, oh, I'm worthless. And the reality is that's where we need the grace of Christ to say, you're not worthless. You are loved. Okay, you got lives to save. You got a battle to fight. You got to pick yourself up and go out and fight that battle.
Yeah. So, I came to Christ 20 years ago, and frankly, I don't remember one single sermon in about 15 years about abortion or the value of life, ever. So, on the one hand, what I'm here saying is, hey, the gospel, living with Jesus, is not limited to the 4 walls of your church. So, I think what I feel is that we adults and leaders cannot, either with intention or without intention, underestimate the youth. And to be honest with you, they think they're stupid. They don't think. They are kids.
But they're not.
And they are not. They need a reason, not only to live for, but to die for, which are two different important things. Like in China, you're saying you can die for saving life, you can be a hero. In Latin America, in the countries that we can be a Christian, we're allowed to preach in the parks with a megaphone. We have so freedoms that many countries don't have. How about we give them a reason to live for that is not only the spiritual sphere, that you can live in a physical world, and if you fail, well, that's part of life. But that's why we're in the light, to be forgiven and restored. Yes.
Yeah, and I think giving someone, well, first of all, as believers, we know that it is our duty to go and rescue the innocent. The Bible calls us to that in Proverbs. Speak up for those who are pointed to death. So we, first of all, if we are going to be actually naming the name of Jesus, and if we're going to be claiming to be living in this spiritual life with him, that necessitates physical action. But then the physical action, I think, especially with myself, I'm an evangelical believer, right? And I think sometimes I've seen so much, like I went to Christian college. I had people studying ministry and they're like, oh, that's nice, you're doing the pro-life thing, but I feel called just to do evangelism. I feel
Yeah.
called to ministry. And I'm like, yeah, let's do evangelism.
It's evangelism.
But
This is.
yes, it is evangelism. It's evangelism, right? In the place of the moment where someone's in their most vulnerable, weakest,
Yeah.
scared place and the most open to God. And literally a couple days ago, someone I know got an abortion. And the friend of the person who got the abortion, as soon as they found out, called the person and talked with them through it and about what had happened and why, how that she had felt. She'd said she was scared and she, shared all the emotions with this person. And the friend was able to pray with her. And this person did not know Jesus.
Mhm.
When they prayed, she wasn't even open to saying the name of Jesus. But through that time of reaching her in that moment, praying with her, afterwards she said, okay, now I'm going from being more of a God that isn't involved in my life to believing that God is actually a good God.
Yeah.
And by reaching her in that moment, that's when you are so weak and vulnerable. That's when we have to
Yeah.
reach people for the gospel.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
yeah.
So, yeah, like that moment, that crisis, because it's all a crisis everywhere. Our world is a crisis in and of itself.
Yes.
When we're born, we're in a crisis. We're born crying. Okay, so let's train our youth and our people to face crisis, to fix the mess and move on. So it seems that the abortion movement, the abortion created a missionary field that many Christians are not seeing today. So how can we become our fellow Christians more aware that
Yeah.
abortion, when a woman wants to have an abortion, when a woman has had an abortion, how can we take advantage of that window to go with Jesus Christ?
We absolutely can. So in that moment, when someone has experienced abortion, we first of all want to listen, right? We want to
Yeah,
find out what, we want to show them love, right? People don't know, they don't care what you think until they know how much you care.
I love that. That's one of my phrases. They don't care how much you know. They care how. Let me rephrase it
Yeah.
again. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's
Yes.
not about, I had a hard time. Maybe it took me time to learn this, but it's not about selling our position or implanting an inception into somebody else's mind. It's about listening what they have to say. How can
Yeah.
we encourage people to help people feel comfortable and confident in speaking about what they really think? Because some people, as
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson says, are ideologically possessed, but really in their heart, they might think differently, right?
Well, what I've noticed from years of the conversations I've had is, as you said, people will sometimes use logic as a front. Like it's this wall that's, I'm imagining a piece of glass with like that mirror covering on it, right?
Yeah.
So it protects them from being able to actually people seeing into the depths of their heart. But so I think it's not bad to have logical conversations with people because sometimes when they finally realize that you're getting so close to that shiny glass, you might actually be able to see in. That's when you can actually say, hey, like, thanks for sharing, and this
Yeah.
is something, especially if you've been asking questions. If you've been asking questions and then they've been saying, oh, well, this and this, and you're like, okay, well, does that really make logical sense, right? But in a very loving way, right? In a very loving, compassionate way, then to say, hey, do you know someone who has experienced abortion?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or,
It's like going heart to heart.
yeah, exactly. It is heart to heart, right?
Yes.
Speaking to the person's heart, reaching them there, and then loving them there in that moment.
Yeah.
First step is listen and
Yeah.
then inspire.
Yes. I remember I was talking to a 40-year-old woman that she got pregnant and she came out of a disastrous relationship. So she was on her own now. And she called me and we were on the phone and she said, well, I need to talk to someone. I've been a Christian, but my ex-boyfriend wants me to have an abortion. I have two children that are 25 years old and 30 or so. They are adults now, and I am 40 and I am pregnant again. This is going to be embarrassing. Besides, my job is a minimum salary, And I thought, well, those are the moments that you don't want to be in, that you want to flee. And I thought, okay, hey, you know what? I am a man. Everything you talk to me right now is absolutely confidential, and I just want to listen to you. So tell me about you. How do you see yourself in 5 years? How do you think you will feel depending on the decision you take now? Tell me about your family, your best friend. Do you have somebody? Because she's in a very far city in Colombia. And I mean, though, among many other things, I told her, hey, you know what? God will provide. We don't know how, but
Yeah.
He will honor that we choose life. And like
Yeah.
4 months later, she called me, Anderson. I remember what you told me, and I thought, oh my God, what did I say? And she said, well, God has provided. They treated me so well in this job that they renewed my contract. And my aunt is helping me out to move with the pregnancy. Despite that the doctors have told me like 3 times, because of your age, it is better to have an abortion. And she said, I'm going to continue. It's a baby girl. And thank you for those
Mhm.
words. So I think, it's at that very moment, sometimes we don't know, but if we kind of are in sync with the Holy Spirit or sensitive because heart to heart is not debating with the person, it's just
No, it's not.
listening
It's
to their
loving
soul.
them.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I love what you said that God will provide
Yeah.
because, and that's literally something I told our African leaders, who are helping these women choose life, and that God is a provider, right? And we just need to remind them of that, right? We need to remind them that God is a provider and He's going to provide for all we
Yeah.
need because money, you can feel desperate with all the money in the world,
Yeah. That's true.
but if God has given you and entrusted a new life into you, that
Mm.
He trusts it and knows that He'll provide. Like He said, give us today our daily bread. He gives us what we need today, and He will supply for that. And
Yeah.
we can trust Him for that.
It's a crisis of faith. We replace faith with abortion. So, uh,
Yeah.
what are the Pro-Life Global? You have been working in the United States, in Europe, I think in Africa. Uh, can you tell us what are the common denominators or patterns that you find everywhere, both in the pro-life movement and people that are pro-abortion?
Oh, wait. So do you mean like common thinking or thinking
Yeah, like
patterns? Oh, yeah.
common thinking patterns, like how people feel. Is it the same
Yeah.
arguments, the same ideas? How they respond to the teaching? Is the teaching like universal for everybody?
Mhm. Yeah. So that's a super great question because now, yeah, I have been to a lot of countries in the world, over 36 countries in
Wow,
Asia, Africa, Europe, Latin America, North America. So
it's a lot of
Caribbean.
countries.
Yeah. So there is, okay, so one common denominator that I see amongst people who are pro-life and who are pro-choice, pro-abortion, is fear.
Fear. Mm.
There's a massive spirit of fear because the adversary tries to tell us, you're not strong enough. You can't
Mm.
do this. You're alone. And that you're alone is the exact same thing that he tells the woman in pregnancy crisis as he tells the pro-life student on campus. In Mexico, right now, to my knowledge, there's only one official pro-life university group on any campus, college campus in Mexico. Now, why is this the case? It's not because other students didn't try to start them. It's actually because the administration of Mexican universities systematically shut down these different groups that people tried to start. And
Oh.
those students felt alone. They were not equipped and prepared to battle back. The one group that exists, the leader of that group, Rodrigo, he was very brave and he decided to go to the media. And
Mm.
this was in a part of Mexico where abortion is not even officially legal, right? So he went to the media. And once he went to the media, 3 months later, finally, the university decided to reinstate Prolife Global.
Wow.
And he faced actually even personal, you know, discrimination against the university. And, but he stood strong, right? And he said, okay, it doesn't matter. right? Like life matters more. And I see this across Latin America. The
Fear.
pro-lifers on university campuses, especially, they feel alone. And as at the high school campus as well, they say, okay, I want us to maybe do something, but then they face pressure and
Yeah.
persecution and they wash away.
Yeah.
And that's the exact same thing that women in pregnancy crisis feel. Maybe they even feel like they're pro-life, but then they face pressure, they face persecution. Their boyfriend says you should get the abortion. Their father says you should get the abortion. I'll kick you out of my house, right? Their church maybe says you should get an abortion, or they're just
Yeah.
afraid of telling their church, right?
Yeah.
Because the shame factor. And
Yeah.
that's the exact same thing I see not Latin America, but in Africa, in the US, and even in Europe. I think the shame factor is maybe slightly less, unless, of course, you grew up in a really religious community. But in Europe, it's more of like the convenience factor. But I think people are just like, how to be able to get not birth control, childcare, right? Childcare for my kid.
Yeah.
There's not very much childcare in this area. If you are from a really rural part of the country, even in Europe, then there
Yeah.
still is that shame factor. And now with like even more immigrants in Europe, especially from Middle East, there's a lot of that shame and even legitimate fear for your life potentially
Yeah.
from some of those communities. And so
Yeah. You're there.
I, yeah, I am here.
Okay. Yeah. It's just
Can you hear me?
wait a few seconds. Yeah. You're back. Yeah.
Okay. What I was just saying is the
The
thing to
shame.
remember is that God is stronger than fear
Yeah. Yeah.
and than shame, and that fear is a liar.
It is. It is
But we can
because
actually believe if we can believe it, just yeah, turn to Christ. He'll be
yeah,
there with
because
us.
fear is a fantasy. You fear when you
Yes.
feel fear, it's not a real thing. It's a it's a something that presumably might happen in probably
Yes.
and I'm thinking about this, and I've been reading a book from a guy from Brazil. He came from Bolivia. I think he's the author of one book called The Strategy to Dominate the West. And it's based on a Catholic priest from Brazil. Really, really good book. And he's saying that because the Judeo-Christian structure has been kind of dismantled or fragmented, the only thing that is left for society is fear. So fear is like this monster that threatens you in the middle of your university, your college, or high school, but it ain't do anything. It's just a projection. It's just a hologram. So it in sense like it feels like being pro-life is a minority. I think it's not, because when you open up conversations with people, people will open. And what do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Actually, I think you have a very good point because so when I was living in Germany, I remember we went to this very liberal campus and we thought that there would be hardly anyone who's pro-life, but we just decided to go and survey people. And so we just asked people walking by, hi, can I ask you, are you for or are you against abortion? We found out about one out of every four people was actually pro-life.
Yeah.
And we got them to sign up. We said, okay, hey, we want to start a pro-life team on campus here. Would you write down your contact information? I said, don't worry, you're not signing your life away, but we'll just let you know about what's happening. But we were starting to fill up this sheet. We got 10, 15, 20 names of people. And as we started to get the names of people, there was actually a couple people who were pro-abortion who started coming up to us and started talking to other people, just
Yeah.
as we were talking to them and saying, oh, they're crazy and they hate women, all this stuff. And to try to
Right.
get them to be afraid of joining the pro-life club. And they started stalking us as when we would move. They would start, and I say that because, okay, that's maybe the worst that can happen to you as a pro-lifer. Did they even hurt us? No. Did we get stalked? Yeah. Did we
Yeah.
move? Yeah. Were we fine? Yeah. Was it funny? Kind of. And did it show that we were making a difference? Yes. And that's the thing. When we make a difference, we make it pushback. So, and I do
Yeah.
want to say, like, it's not like the fact that the university groups got closed down by the administration in Mexico. That's a
Yeah.
legitimate
Yeah.
thing, right? So I don't want to say
Yeah.
there's no truth to the source of fear, but what I want to say is courage is pressing forward in the face of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
I think that. Yeah, in a way, because I think that in North America, it might take maybe decades for the church and believers to wake up in regards to abortion. Like it took 50 years to reverse a law on Roe v. Wade. So I think those patterns can repeat in Latin America. It can take time for the church to wake up and realize that uh, I'm not very happy about using this expression, but I will use it. That the left has been working systematically in education for decades, and now that we want to do our work, it's just individuals against this systematic system they have been able to create, and this requires a lot of courage to to go against like a consensus about abortion.
Yeah.
So
But Anderson, like last night, I watched the play To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't know if you've ever heard that story,
no,
that book, but it's
check
based
it out.
on, so it's based in the US in the 1930s. And it's a story of a black man who's falsely accused of raping a white girl.
Mm.
And
Oh
who were the
yeah,
witnesses? The white girl, the girl's dad. And, as it comes out in the trial, it becomes clear that it was the girl's dad who was actually raping his own daughter, right?
yeah,
And pressuring and forcing her to do this. And it was just this massive mess, right?
yeah.
But the sad thing is, because of the racism, they actually found this black guy guilty and he was killed.
Hmm.
And
He was lynched. Is that lynching? If
yeah,
I'm
it
not
was,
wrong. Yeah.
it's interesting because the story said that, he was reported that he went to jail and was, shot by trying to climb over the fence, but one of his arms didn't work. So how could he have even tried to climb over the fence if his arm didn't work? So it was unclear, like, was he executed with the electric chair? Was he lynched? How did it happen? Right? We don't know. But the, the point of this is that the community was all, you know, against this family, but in that, the black family, but in that story, there was a white man who was an attorney who
Mm.
realized, I have to do what's right. I have to defend this man. And
Yeah.
his family, his kids were with him. And then the judge saw through this. And then as you go about the story, you start to see more and more people from the community who you
Yeah.
thought maybe were crazy people, who were silent, who didn't do anything, that are now protecting and defending and fighting what is right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, we're not in any like difference in the time of history. Like
Mhm.
Colombia has gone through times, many times, where
Oof.
you've had, like, the church has had to fight for what's right
Mm.
and for life.
Yeah.
And that's the exact same time we're in today. And it's a question of, will the real heroes fight?
Yeah.
Will you be a modern day hero? And 20, 50 years from now, will your grandchildren say, wow, you fought
Yeah.
despite the difficulty because you did what was right, and I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm proud of my ancestors for hiding black slaves during
Wow.
slavery.
It's
The
amazing.
church did. They were
Yeah.
Native Americans. And the
Yeah.
church on the Native American, like, branch,
Yeah.
you could say,
Yeah.
hid the blacks
Yeah.
and the slaves. And I'm proud of that. But it's a question, like, will we look back and will we say, wow, I'm proud of my ancestors? Like, will we be those people that our kids can look up to? Or will it be the people who said, you know what? In Nazi Germany,
Yeah.
I gave in. I hid myself.
It's. I think in the one hand, the young people today, they for the discourse that we hear in the media and everywhere, they feel that they are better than our ancestors. And the question
Mhm.
is, like me being in Colombia 60 or 50 years ago, that we have this shedding of blood through the guerrillas and all that war. Would I be that person protecting the farm owners that were being killed by the guerrillas? And as worse as that was with the guerrillas and narco traffic, abortion is not different because it is taking innocent lives. And that's the thing I talk to young people when I'm going with our trainings with Passion Life and other scenarios is, hey, I'll tell you why the movies, Marvel movies are a success, because they're talking about heroes. You know, people that are not heroes will not give successful movies, because the hero will always try to save the most vulnerable in their society, in their midst, right? So, but yeah, go ahead.
And interesting, I think following along that heroes, the Avengers is really popular recently, right?
Yeah,
And we see the only way the Avengers were able to actually defeat, the enemy and to save lives and to bring back the lives that have been lost was through working together as a team. And
hmm,
that's what I think is so important for young
yeah.
people is to support and mentor and equip to not just lead.
Hold on a second because you froze.
Yeah, okay, I think you're back.
You're back.
So is to go in, when we go in and give these talks in schools, is to say, be a hero, write down your contact information, we'll follow up with you. We will help you then to form a team in your school where
Yeah,
you're praying, you're gathering, and you're doing what God tells you to do to save lives. Because we can't fight alone, right? We're not going to
yeah,
be
no,
effective alone. But if we equip, and I think of the older generation, it's on us to equip those in
yeah,
the high school and the university to be there so they don't feel alone, to
yeah,
help them then to get their peers together to form this team and to go on and fight. And it's going to take time, it's going to take mentorship, but it's worth it. It's 100% worth it because it's a replication. We're going to be training and equipping these leaders,
yeah,
right? And I think, as I said, a team fights together. You just need to gather 3 people, 2 to 3 people is a team.
yeah,
Pray
yeah,
together and do what God tells you to do to save lives.
yeah. It's, it's like being on a boat and having everyone moving on the same direction. About that, I have noticed in Latin America there's many organizations and pro-life ministries, both Catholic and Christians, that are doing something. That's
Yeah,
very encouraging, because sometimes we think, well, this is a brand new field to work on. Well, it's not. There's already people doing something, but
absolutely.
they are doing it solo, Lone Ranger.
Mhm.
In your experience, what is maybe the key or an advice to unite, to working together, to, hey, you don't need to do it solo. This is organization that you have this core belief about life. This is not divisive. This is uniting. You can partner with them. How can we
Mhm.
advise people and encourage that unity in South America?
Oh, I love that question, Anderson, because that's so much of my heart is unity. So whenever I come to a country and whenever our team comes to a country, we invite all of the pro-life leaders from all the different organizations and even the different church denominations as well.
Yeah,
And we have them sit down at a table and we say, tell us, what are the strengths of your pro-life movement? What are the weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your threats? And from that, then we create essentially a list of what needs to be done to make their country pro-life. We say, usually there's a few basic things, like usually it's we need to reach the young people. Sometimes it's we need a unified legal movement. Sometimes it's we need a
mm,
better social media structure, right? And then we say, okay, who's going to take the lead on these different issues? We have
yeah,
different pro-life leaders from different organizations take the lead because some are naturally strengthened and gifted already in those areas. And
mm,
then we assign who's going to follow up and make sure this all happens. And I think for us as an organization, what we do is very regularly. Yesterday, I was talking to a pro-life leader from the US and saying, how can we work together with you guys, partner with you as an organization, put your logo on our website so that we can then refer people to you guys. You can come on, do some trainings. We can do combined social media
yeah,
posts, right? Because we don't believe that we need to reinvent the wheel. We don't believe we need to do
oh yeah,
everything. But if we can be that linkage and to be able to help other people, then we'll be able to grow and expand. And honestly, I've been the lone pro-lifer at times, and I've been the pro-lifer on organizations where we have a large support team. So much better to be with other people. Like
yeah,
being a lone pro-lifer is not fun at all. So
yeah,
like why do we need to do that? Like it doesn't matter. It's not for our glory, it's for God's glory. Like, and
yeah,
I love the saying, we can get so much done if you don't care who gets the glory. And that's really something with Prolife Global. we come in to every country with how do we serve? How do we serve you? What's going on in your country? It's not about our name of Pro-Life Global. We
Mhm.
don't want everyone to have a Pro-Life Global group necessarily. I mean, they could if they think that's the best
Yeah,
branding for them, but we want them to choose the name and the branding that's going to work for them in their country. We want them to save lives, right? We want
yeah,
them to take ownership. And if you look at Planned Parenthood Global, they fund and resource 90 plus organizations, largely in mainly Latin America and Africa, with millions of dollars.
yeah,
But there's our 90 plus different organizations, right? And if they can be unified, and if that's one of their keys to success, how
yeah,
much more is that need for us to come together under the unity we have as believers, right? We
yeah,
believe the same God. We have the same heart and the value of mission for life.
yeah.
What's keeping us separate?
And I tell people, hey, even if atheists want to join, well, they're welcome to be on board because this is a life and death issue. This is humanity that is at stake.
Yeah,
A few months ago, we were in Argentina with Passion Life, and I was very impressed by the work they are doing. They have already a nationwide hotline that is connected to 400 different organizations that they can refer the people who call and chat. And I was talking to the director of this network, and they reached the thousand babies saved. And that's just amazing because, like, where the crisis is more concentrated, they are doing more. It's like, again, like in Cuba, under that system, people are doing amazing things that sometimes we, with the opportunities have here in other countries, we don't do it. So yeah, I think it's been a great conversation. There's many things we can talk about, we can share, and I'm pretty sure this isn't the last time. Do you
yeah,
want to share something like final words about you, your
yeah.
ministry?
Well, be not afraid. Like I was afraid as a high school kid, so I totally relate to people who are. And but like you said, it is this kind of like boogeyman there. But once you actually stand up and you declare the name of Jesus, it disappears and leaves.
Yeah,
So, and that's been something for me, taking the step of faith to say, okay, God, what do you want me to do? And actually saying yes to him has been the most amazing thing ever. Like,
yeah,
as I said, I'm 29, I'm not even 30, and I've been to over 36 countries, right? Like, I would not have imagined that would be my life 10 years ago, leading a global pro life organization, like, of all things. But it's been so fulfilling and rewarding. Whenever I see those pictures of those babies that have been saved by our leaders around the world,
yeah.
I'm
That's
so
something
grateful.
you won't regret.
Yeah. And so, I want to tell everybody in Latin America who might be watching this, if you say, hey, I want to do something, I want to be a modern day hero, I want to make a difference in my school, in my university, in my community, then they can just send us a message, an email on our website's prolifeglobal.org. We have an Instagram, prolifeglobal.org, and we also have Facebook as well. Just shoot us a message, an email, and we will get in touch with them and equip them and support them to be able to actually be lifesavers in
Yeah,
their community. Because Christ has saved us. So how much more can we go out and save
yeah. We will
others?
add the link to Prolife Global into the description of this video so people can reach out to you. They can message you and follow you on Instagram and different networks. So thank you for joining me today again. I think it's been a great conversation. I hope this is beneficial and edifying for both Latin America English speakers and North America, that they can have a glimpse of what's happening in Latin America, the pro-life movement. Okay,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anderson, for your time, and God bless you and all of your work there.
amen. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you have found it enjoyable. My objective in this channel is to share about the Christian worldview, share interviews, speak about books, popular culture, and issues in general in the world from a Latin American perspective. Feel free to subscribe, to follow me, to send me a message, and I see you soon.